Welcome to Authors After Dark. This is AMC writer A.M. McPherson, soon to be indie author of her premier novel, The Guardian's Daughter. It's a fantasy romance, paranormal romance, YA. We talked about superhero romance, which I don't know if you can see. I wore my Vision and Scarlet Witch shirt just
Nice.
so.
Oh, I love the Scarlet Witch.
Yeah,
Yes.
and I don't know if you can see, but that poster back there is a huge Marvel. It's off screen, but it's a huge
I can see a little bit of it.
it's a
Yeah.
huge Marvel poster with every superhero that they have in the
hmm
current run. So anyway, I love superheroes as well, and
Yes.
I'm excited to talk to you. Um, Talk to me a little bit about your upcoming release. You just started being able to pre-order The Guardian's Daughter. Is that correct?
Yes. After a couple little hiccups, it's finally available for pre-order. It's available in ebook, paperback, and hardback. It's available pretty much on any um, book retailer. I did wide release, so it's not just available on Amazon. So
That's
that's that's nice. Yeah. So it's available on multiple platforms. But
great.
yeah, it's my debut book. I'm really excited about it. I've been working on it for over 2.5 years. I'm like, finally, it's coming out.
Oh, congratulations. That's the best feeling, and it is so much work.
Yeah, I know. When I finally, like, when I got my print copies from Ingram Spark and I saw how well they turn out through them and the cover looks so gorgeous, I was like, it was worth it. It all worked
You're,
out.
can I just say, can I just gush over your cover for a minute? I love it. It's beautiful. If y'all haven't seen it, go over to her profile and check it out. Or maybe you have a copy. Beautiful. That's
I was saying, I don't think
beautiful.
so could see. There it goes.
Yeah, that's really
But yeah,
great.
the cover
And
designer was Maria Spada. She's amazing. She was great to work with, and she went beyond my expectations
yeah,
on it. So,
she did a wonderful job.
hmm
And covers can be so daunting the first time. You don't know who to hire. It's like there's so many things that we as authors don't do. Covers is one of them. Some authors do their own covers, and hurrah to them. But I
yeah,
definitely, even as a person that is an artist, I was like, it's good to delegate because you have so many hats that you wear as an indie author. Um, so talk to me a little bit about your origin story, to borrow a superhero turn of phrase. What got you into writing? When did you start writing? When did you realize you were going to write a book and you were going to self-publish it?
Well, all my life I've always wanted to write, but back in high school and stuff, sometimes I got just discouraged by teachers and whatnot, and I just felt like, even though I was in English honors and all that jazz, I didn't feel like I could do it. I even took some college courses, but I was always really hard on myself, and I actually dropped out of one of my writing classes. So I was like, oh, I can't do this. So I kind of just let it.
I did
Yeah.
that.
So I'm just like, I'm just gonna forget about this. It's
Hmm.
it's fine. I'm not gonna worry about it. It wasn't until after the birth of my son, I started having really bad postpartum depression and
Hmm.
really bad anxiety attacks triggered from the sleep deprivation I was having because he didn't want to sleep, and I was also breastfeeding, and I should have just accepted like I have a low milk supply at the time, but I kept just like pushing myself to the point of no return pretty much. But in the midst of all that, I had this dream just about these two people who kind of wanted to be together, but there's weird convoluted reasons they couldn't be together, but at the same time I wasn't fully sure the storyline. So it kind of just sat with me for a little bit, and I ended up kind of having like a second dream similar to the first one. And so I just remember sitting down with my husband, and I was like, I think I want to write, like, try to write again and flesh this out. And he was like, go for it. So, I remember just buying my laptop off of Amazon. So I was like, well, I need something good to write on that I can take with me while I'm trying to feed Richard and,
Hmm.
take care of him and everything. And pretty much I just kind of got obsessed with writing. And at the time, I was working just part time and I was finishing school and taking care of him. So I was doing all of that, and actually, my last class I took before I graduated was a writing class. So I was kind of working on that while, I was doing really good in my writing class, and so that helped me make myself feel better about things. But it just became this great tool to help me kind of work through my anxiety and depression, almost just a way to distract myself from everything. And so I kind of just really latched onto it, and it went through many revisions. I'm not gonna lie, like
Yeah,
some of the first stuff I wrote, I look back and I'm just like, holy cow, like what?
yeah.
No.
Oh yeah.
I did a good old fashioned like web diagram where I was trying to chart everything and outlines and all that. And,
You
you
were
know, I had,
teaching yourself to write a book, is what you're.
yeah, I mean,
I,
yeah, then, I got a writing group and they helped me get through some stuff and then beta readers and all that fun jazz. And I'm very proud of the product I've put out, but it was a labor of love, which I know you can relate to that with your own book, probably.
oh yes, and I think too, like, and you and I are both in unique positions right now. We're both in the midst of producing our next work. I saw your post the other day, and I commented on it. How we're one thing I do is I keep a copy of my book by me when I write the next book, and I started to write. I should have already done this, but I started to write down key things of the world building that I did because again, that first book is such a labor of love. You're teaching yourself how to write while crafting a story, and as
Mhm.
fantasy writers and as people that love superheroes and all of that world building, I want to add a lot of details and nuance that um, may not make it, and like my book as well. I think I rewrote at least two-thirds of it when I did decide to really take it seriously and publish it,
Mhm.
self-publish the Anchor Time, because I read it and I was like, I just need to apologize to everyone I made read, which was
Right.
my mom and my sister at the time and a friend. So I was like, you're family. And it's so much better for that. So I'm sure, whatever you revise, ultimately your book benefited from. But it does feel as a writer like I'm just gonna chuck that 50K
Yeah. Well,
just practice.
yeah, that's what it was kind of like with my post about my second book. I wrote my first book and I was on such a roll with it. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna knock out the second one. So I knocked out the second one. And originally I was planning on this thing to be 7 books long, but then I've kind of reeled myself in. I'm like, no, it's gonna be four, not
Yeah,
7.
four's a good
But anyways, so I knocked out the second one, but then I ended up making some big changes to the first one after doing some beta reading and some feedback. And all of a sudden I was like, oh no, the major plot of the second, well, I shouldn't say the major plot, but kind of a overall plot with it. I was like, oh no, why did I do this? Like I have to
one.
kind of scrap most of it. But actually, I think I just saw someone comment on the post and they were very right. It really wasn't work wasted because there are some parts from it that I can take that's going to help me build it. It's just kind of I still have to go through and rewrite pretty much the whole entire thing.
Yeah.
But now I know my style, and then before like I was having a hard time figuring out how the style one to write and the point of view, which I have deciding like first person point of view. So it's like now I know my style and I know how I write and I know the point of view, so I know it's gonna be easier to hammer out in that way. But now just making sure, like you said, that I might have one of my proof copies off of Amazon on my desk to go through
Hmm.
to make sure I reference to make sure I keep everything straight. And I have some notebooks where I've made notes of like my hero characters, my villain characters to try to keep certain
That's
points of them straight. Because
yeah.
like especially like okay, who has what abilities? What are the color of their eyes?
Yeah.
What's like their
Yeah.
favorite kind of food? Because I've done all those random little details, and sometimes when I want to reference them, I'm like, oh, what did I say? What was his favorite color
Mhm.
again? I don't remember. So it's an easy reference, but I know I have to even go through those and kind of update a few of them. There's always so much work, and then I work full time on top of it, and of course, family time is very important to me. So
Mhm.
sometimes I'm just struggling to
Yeah.
fit in the writing and the little stuff time. Like usually, I try to steal an hour in the morning or an
Mhm.
hour after my son goes to sleep. But I'm starting after with COVID. I used to before COVID on Saturdays I would spend about my mornings at a local cafe, and that really helped me get a lot of writing done.
Yeah.
So with COVID
Understood.
coming down, I'm gonna start doing that again to help me get back into it. Because I'm like, if I don't figure out something, it's gonna take me even longer to write this second book because the first book I was able to write it. I said it took me 2.5 years, but still
Mhm.
to me, it's like, it's my first book. I
Yeah.
wrote it in my mind kind of a little bit faster. And that was because most of my time when I did write the majority of it, I was home part time with my son. But
Hmm.
now,
Your schedule.
my husband lost his job a couple of years ago. And after that happened, I went back to work full time. So now just trying to balance everything. Sometimes I'm like, I got this. This is great. I'm handling it like a rock star. The other times I'm like, no, everything's a mess and chaotic and flying everywhere. Like,
Right.
it's like, it's fine. It's
Yeah.
totally fine.
Fun. So really what you're saying is you're a superhero. You're an indie author and a
Don't
mom. I'm also a mom. My children are much, much older. I'm a stepmom and my kids are 17 and 19. But
Ah,
I've been around since they were 7 and 9. So I've seen some growth, and it's a balance. All of that is a balance,
Mhm.
like taking care of your kids, having a social life, because you do
Mhm.
need to step away from the computer. And, all of our experiences are gifts for the writing mill. All the stuff when we feel guilty, we're watching a movie instead of writing. Well, movies and books inspire our creativity that nourishes us, that fills our well. And I think the most important thing too, when you are doing as many things as you're doing, is balance and realizing that self-care is important, which
Mhm.
is so easy for me to say, but in practice, us moms, it's very touch and go. So
Yeah.
I applaud you, and it's all about finding the work balance too when you're trying to create something as crazy as a book. Um,
Mhm.
I will say I feel like my second book went a lot faster. I don't know if you're experiencing that, or just like the culmination of ideas in the manuscript came about a lot faster. My first book took me 6 years. Uh,
Oh, wow. Yeah. I mean, it's awesome though, you stuck with it because sometimes I hear so many people like, oh, yeah, I started a book, 5, 6 years ago, but I've never done anything with it or just abandoned it. And it's like, oh, that poor story. Like, it probably could be, but sometimes, like, I get it, 'cause especially, life happens and it's hard. And, that's one thing I've tried so hard. I want to do like through my Instagram and stuff is like, always make time to work on your dreams no matter what. Even if, like with me, it's like only if you can steal an hour a week or something, like don't give up on those
yeah,
dreams because if you don't work on your dreams, no one else is going to do it for you and you're going to get stuck building someone else's dream. And that's one thing, and I have to say, having my son inspired me a lot in the sense too. It's like, I want to leave him a legacy and him being like, mom always worked on her dreams. I need to make sure I do the same in my life. You know what I mean? So that was very important for me to, like I actually dedicate, my book to my husband and to him. And,
that's great.
when he reads it, he's inspired to be like, mom did this. I can be able to do
Yeah,
something, So,
absolutely.
mom did this while she was losing her mind. It's fine, you know?
Uh, well, hopefully things start to quiet down a little bit for you. I did see too that you just got back from vacay, which I will touch
Yeah.
on later. And those kind of breaks too are so good to just reset your energy, especially when you feel like you're just in this chaotic, repetitive time loop, if you will.
Mhm.
Um, so, talk to me a little bit about the plot of Guardian's Daughter. Um, I know that I referred to it in the ad for this week's episode as a paranormal or fantasy romance, but you mentioned superhero romance, which I haven't seen that as a genre per se, but I can't imagine it's not because we are so into superheroes right now.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, just give me a little walkthrough of the Guardian's Daughter. By the way, too, as a person that's recently taken an editing course, really loved your use of the Guardian when you put the comma on the outside. I was like,
Thank you.
she knows her stuff.
I have to admit that apostrophe though is like the Achilles heel of
Mm,
this book because I see it so many times where people reposted about it or talked about it. And I'm like, oh, thank you so much. But I'm like, the apostrophe's in the wrong place. Like, I'm just like, oh no. But I'm like, it's right on the cover. That's the biggest part. That's the biggest thing.
yeah,
Um,
and only on
but
the author show would we talk about the placement of that kind of stuff.
you know,
The minutia, but it's so important because for me, I was like, oh, Guardians is an organization. I assume within the story, it's not just a guardian. So
hmm.
I'll let you.
Well, The Guardians is referencing the main characters' names. There's Ember Volterra and Aiden Styles, and it's a dual perspective, so it tends to shift between the point of view. And the Guardians are referencing to her parents, which is kind of like an organization, like a hero type organization within the world. But one thing about my world is abilities are part of the norm. Most people, like pretty much majority of the population has abilities, so they're not really like special. So the heroes it's kind of like a police force in a sense if you think of it like that. Some people choose to use their abilities to protect others, while some other might try to get like a normal job. Like one example is Aiden's mom. She's able to fly, so she actually has a job at the local airport, being a supervisor there. And I don't think I really went into deep details of her job in the book, but pretty much she's like a mechanic. So if there's an airplane that's having issues in the air, she can fly up there to help with that. So that was kind of something different I tried to do a little bit. But pretty much the overall plot is between Ember and Aiden meeting at college. And Ember Volterra, after her parents died, she pretty much became a recluse because there was a horrific event revolving around their murders. Um, so she becomes a recluse for many years until she goes off to college, and there she meets Aiden. And of course, the two end up falling for each other. But what she doesn't know is Aiden's actually hiding a secret from her, and he's tied to her parents. And
Mm,
so it goes back and forth between his, he wants to be with her, but then he doesn't know how he can be because he was instructed to never tell this secret of his.
mhm.
So he's scared about that, and he's working towards being a guardian. So he doesn't know if he's risking his future, not just with his profession he wants to go with, or he's going to lose Ember. But of course, the two end up, trying to work things out. But the whole time he's still struggling with holding this secret from her. So
Mhm.
that's pretty much the overall plot. But there's a whole bunch of other things going on revolving, what happened with her parents being murdered, the villains who are responsible for it, and there's just a whole underlying plot that's going on through the whole thing revolving around that.
So there's a lot of mystery. It's a kind of a mystery
Mhm.
suspense with some romance, um, kind of making a lot of tension within the book, I would say, as she
Yeah,
kind
and
of
I have to
starts to
admit,
unravel.
sometimes I still wonder if I've picked the best genres for my book. I'm not gonna lie, the genres were so hard
Huh.
for me to figure out, and
Yeah.
sometimes I still like I'm not sure. Like
Hmm.
everyone, like I asked my beta readers and my editor, like, do you feel like superhero romance goes well with this? And pretty much everyone said yes. But sometimes, recently I had some critiques about like the romance. It is a slow burn romance. It's not it's a young adult book, so please don't go and read it like expecting heat between the sheets all the time. So that's not what this book is.
Yeah. It's
It's a
dangerous
slow
when
burn.
you mentioned romance because people go to, oh, it's a romance book. Well, it's not the primary. It's got other things, is what you're saying.
Yeah. See, my biggest thing is though, it's like, if I took out the romance aspect of the book, I felt like the plot would kind of fall apart
Hmm.
because it pretty much is revolving around, these two main characters who want to be together, but like there's this conflict though with the
Yeah.
main character because of the secret he's hiding.
So they're
So that's one
constantly
reason
their connection.
decided, yeah, so that's one reason why I decided to leave the romance
Mhm.
tag, but then sometimes I'm like, I don't know if
Yeah.
that's coming across too strong. So I'm like, I think that's one thing I'm gonna learn a lot from the feedback and the reviews I probably get on this and try to figure out if that is the best genres to stick with it or if I should rethink. I, it's so hard to
Yeah.
pick the genres. It's just, I
Yeah.
didn't realize how hard it was going to be, but it's like, this is hard.
Just based on what you said, if I had to, but not having read it clearly, I would say I would venture that maybe it's urban paranormal romance because it's in a college setting.
Yeah, see, I thought about urban fantasy, like, I
Hmm.
just, it was so hard.
Yeah.
And I think what made me settle on it is when my editor came back, he was like, yeah, he's like, I can't really think of two other genres this would work well with. And I was like, okay, well, I'll just stick with this. And now one of my questions for my beta reading feedback I had on my questionnaire, like, do you feel like these genres work?
Hmm.
Pretty much everyone said yes, but then sometimes I still wonder, like, I don't know. I don't know. So
Hmm.
this is something I'll have to learn and find out. And that's one thing I am fully accepting, like, this is my first book. I'm learning a lot, but I reached a point with the story where I was like, I'm done with this.
Yeah.
I've done all I can do with it.
Away.
It's done. It's time for me to release it, and I will learn from it. And like, long as I get, majority of 3 stars and above, I will sleep
Mhm.
well at night. Like, long as I don't get a whole bunch of 1 stars, I'll be fine. But that's one thing I fully accepted with this because I also don't want to have heartbreak and but not want to write anymore because I know sometimes people expect to release a first book and have, everything shining about it, and it's not necessarily the case all the time. That's
Um,
one thing I'm really expecting to hopefully, I'm hoping people will help me learn with this is to pick,
mhm.
if these aren't the right genres, help me pick the right genres for that. So
Absolutely. And
it is what it is.
you'll learn the more you're, just doing the work. But this is like a new job. I treat writing so much like a new job I'm trying to learn about. And I feel like so I empathize so much with what you're saying because I feel the same way. I didn't know quite what to put my book in. There is romance, but it's slow burning, and there's other intrigue and mystery and sci-fi plot that I'm like,
Mhm.
you know, but also the connection between the characters is one of the driving forces of the story. So you can't take that romance out of there.
Yeah. And
So
that
I
was one thing I loved about romance. Like, I remember watching a couple of videos about romance, and the big thing they said was if you take the romance out, if the story seems to not be able to survive without it, that's kind of why you should put the romance genre with it. So
absolutely.
that's why I decided, like, I think I should keep the romance genre. And there's a lot of the tension between the characters, and there are a few moments between them, don't get me wrong, but it's like,
It's
but
also
sometimes I think I get worried with, huh?
it's also YA. So YA means too that it's closed door, steamy scene.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's what I mean. Like, that's why, I went back and forth between labeling it young adult and new adult. But
I, yeah.
what actually solidified me on just doing young adult is because I asked a few friends, like, how do you feel about new adult? And literally each one of them was like, what's new adult? And I'm like,
Hmm.
hmm. And I'm like, I think that to the general masses, unfortunately, I don't think new adult is a strong enough genre yet
Hmm.
because I know it's not big with like the publishing houses.
Oh, really?
And so, yeah, because what I could tell, because pretty much the stories I've read about new adult is like with big publishing houses, they don't know where to put it at necessarily, like on the bookshelf.
Hmm.
But with self-publishing, a lot of people are doing new adult, and I feel like mine can probably squeeze into that new adult category almost because it is college years.
Hmm.
But at the same time, it's what's the word I'm looking for? It's a clean romance kind of book. So that's why I decided I think I'm safe to go with young adult on it, and then more people would recognize that genre as young adult. Because definitely people the age I believe 13 and up would be fine reading it. I mean, there are some strong words in it. I
Hmm.
made sure to put a trigger warning in the front of it. So that's one thing I want people to go in knowing, like, there are all these mentions of, depression, some suicide. I mean, I want people to be aware of that, and there's strong words in it. So, if that's not your type of style for especially a young adult book, please don't pick it up then.
Hmm.
So,
I think that's smart to just label it young adult so people know what level of intimacy the romance is, and then just put trigger warning. So like you know
mhm.
exactly what's going in.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's like I give you all the warnings I could possibly give you,
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. You're crossing all your T's and dotting all your I's. Um, and so the Guardian's Daughter, it's for pre-order now, and its release is September. Am I correct?
Yep, September 21st.
September 21st. That's a great day.
Yeah, it's one of my friend's birthday. After I said it, I was like,
Oh,
"Oh,
really?
happy birthday! Here's a book."
Awesome. That's awesome. I haven't mentioned my release date for Shadow Glass, but it's gonna be around then.
Is
Um,
it?
yeah, so that's a great day.
Yeah, because you were originally going to do it in the summer, weren't you? But you had to push it back a little bit. Is that correct?
I had a June that I just was really busy with. I have a freelance job that I do, and I have another part-time
Mhm.
job that I do, and then I write part-time. So I guess
Mhm.
so those powers
Yeah,
combined with
you got a
full
lot of balls in the air.
I'm a full-time person with all those powers combined. And June was just really busy for the freelance, and that pays the bills a lot more than the books do. So
Yeah.
I had to lean into that, and I just had to move my deadline. And ultimately, I've moved deadlines before for the anchor of time, and I just feel like ultimately, when you give yourself that grace, you get a better product. And at the end of the day,
Yeah.
submitting a better product to your audience and is just better for your brand. It helps me sleep better at night. I was like, you should
Yeah.
give yourself the grace and move it to fall. You know,
Mhm.
and also it's
No.
learning. I wrote it in February thinking I'll have this done by summer. And then life happens. Uh,
Yeah.
so,
Well,
but
I actually wanted to have. I actually wanted to have pre-order up the middle of June.
hmm,
And I know I think I advertised it once or twice about having it up on June 15th. And yeah, I hit some roadblocks, and I was like, nope, it's not gonna happen. And it like got pushed back a couple of weeks, but I was like, nope, I screwed some things up. It's gonna have to wait.
and it will happen when it needs to happen and when the book is ready. Is how I feel
Mhm.
that stuff goes. And so you're working on the second book in the series right now. Do you have a title for it?
I do. And actually, if you get a copy of The Guardian's Daughter, you'll learn the title of the second book, and there's also a preview chapter in there.
Ooh,
Yeah.
okay, okay. So how's it going, Brighton Book Two? I saw your post the other day. You're in the revision
Well,
stage right now.
kind of, but I'm also pretty much still in, because like I said, I should say like a lot, but there are pieces I can take of my old version of book two to
Hmm.
rework it into the
Yeah.
new one. And yeah, it's just right. I actually randomly then had an idea for another prologue part because what's one thing I did in the Book Guardian's Daughter, I have a prologue, which I feel like I see so many mixed things about prologues. So I'm like, I love prologues, so here's
Yeah.
my prologue.
Yeah.
But what I'm actually this isn't really top secret, so I feel safe to say this. But
Okay.
like the prologue of the Guardian's daughter is told from both Ember's point of view, witnessing a big moment that happens, and then from Aiden's point of view. But then I decided the prologue in the second book is actually going to be from Ember's mom's point of view, who's one of the Guardians who get murdered in the first book, to kind of show some different point of views. But that idea randomly came to me, and all of a sudden I was like, oh my god, I gotta sit down and write this right now. And I literally did. And so like I did that, and I was very happy with it. But I've been stuck on one chapter, which it's chapter 4, and I feel it's still quite in the beginning. And because I was trying, sometimes you realize you're trying to force things to work, and I
Mhm.
kept trying to force this one scene to work, and also I'm like, you know what, it's not working. I need to take it out and just accept it's not meant to go in here. And
Mhm.
then after I did that, things have been flowing much better for it. So I think I'm gonna be able to move on with this too. But sometimes I think as writers, it's weird how sometimes the book really can take a life of its own. Like,
Okay.
I mean, don't get me wrong, you have full control of your characters sometimes, I feel like it,
Mhm.
but the other times when you're writing, you have a plan to go this one way, then all of a sudden you're like, no, it can't go that way, and it starts going another direction sometimes. And I felt like that happened a lot in the first book as well. It kind of kept like some basis themes I had, but sometimes I'd be writing and it would just go off and become something else sometimes. And I'm just like, okay, this is
Mhm.
on it, this is alive, it's doing its own thing, and I'm just here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Terry Pratchett says the first draft is just you telling yourself the story. So
Yeah.
you're just telling yourself the story.
Yeah,
Um,
I tell myself that all the time when I'm writing, actually. I'm just like, just get it out and go back through and clean it up later.
mhm, mhm. You can't edit again. You can't edit an empty page. So even though you may not even use all that copy, I did a lot of that this weekend where I was like, this won't work anymore, but I can use that dialogue tag and that description and just
Yeah. Yeah,
Frankenstein.
book magic, yes.
Magic. That's right,
Yeah.
Dan. Magic. I want to take a break here and talk for a moment about a mutual friend and an Authors After Dark alum. This is S.J. Pratt,
Yeah.
who is a mutual friend of ours, um,
Yes.
who you and her are working on something pretty special coming up on Instagram called the Author Mugshot Challenge. And I
Yeah.
wanted to talk to you a little bit about that. If you wanted to just talk about it and explain it to our viewers for anyone who isn't familiar with the Author Mugshot Challenge.
Yeah. Pretty much it's really simple to do. You pretty much get your favorite coffee mug or two and you take a selfie with it. And then you post it using the hashtag author mugshot challenge. Oh my gosh, I'm forgetting the hashtag.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's author mugshot challenge.
It's Monday
Too many.
after 7. Who are we? What's our name?
Well, I also do. I've also done like the superhero writer challenge, and then
Wow.
I'm working on something else. So sometimes I'm like, I have to keep all these hashtags straight. It's fine, but we're actually rolling back out with it at the end of this week. I think Friday afternoon is when I'm
Okay.
gonna be doing my post for it. Sometimes Sarah, SJ Pratt and I, we have to figure out the time differences because she's in
Yes,
New Zealand.
she
But
is.
that's gonna be coming up. So make sure you have your mugs ready. And it's really, like I said, it's really simple to do. You pretty much just take a selfie of it with your mug.
That's great. Um,
Yeah.
I write notes before these, and I wrote a question to us both. If we did a writing challenge with S.J. Pratt because she's in New Zealand, would she always win because she's in the future?
You know what? She probably would. And she's a fantastic writer too. So I'd be like,
If she's
do
got
I
that
have to
mug
go
that
get?
keeps the coffee hot all the time, have you heard of her space mug? She's got the space mug. It keeps it hot forever. I'm jealous of
Yep.
her. She's watching right now, so
Yeah, she just told me that.
I don't know what time it is, girl. I hope you're in bed.
Honestly, I think it's more. I think it's probably morning-ish for her right now.
Okay.
Yeah,
I just know
but
it's
she's
the
in the
next,
future.
yeah, I just know it's the next day, so I'm like, if we did a challenge, she'd always win.
No, you're 200% right. 200% right.
Awesome. So the Author Mugshot Challenge, hosted by you and SJ Pratt, is starting this Friday. You just get your
Hmm.
favorite mug and you use the hashtag Author Mugshot Challenge. And there might be some prizes. Who
Oh
knows?
yes, there is a giveaway. There was a giveaway with the last one. I know I did one of my favorite mugs. And S.J. Pratt, she's going to have something for this time for a giveaway. So yeah, keep your eyes out for that. And it's so much fun to do. I mean, us authors, we love our hot beverages and
Oh,
our cute coffee mugs. So it's just um, S.J. Pratt was actually the one, she reached out to me about it. She came up with the idea and she's like, hey, will you help me with this? And I was like, oh my gosh, yes, this is genius. Like,
yeah,
yes.
it's really good. I
Yeah.
I obviously had a really good time because I showed my Richard mug collection, which you appreciate because you're the mother of
Yes.
Richard. They didn't have
So when I saw
any.
that, I'm just like, this is perfect. Oh my gosh.
Where are the Richard mugs? Dollywood consistently has Richard mugs. The U.S. Space and Rocket Center did not have Richard mugs. They had Max. They had Tina. I don't want a Tina mug. I know my name. Anyway. Um. Anyway, so that's awesome. That's happening this week. Um.
Yep.
And that is pretty much all I have on the docket for this episode. Is there anything further you wanted to talk about in regards to the Guardian's daughter, writing? I have a question actually before I let you do that. How do
Yeah.
you how do you like your coffee? Speaking of
Hmm.
Mugshot Challenge.
See, I have to admit, most of the time I do drink decaf coffee. Because if I drink regular coffee, I feel the effects of it pretty fast, and for my anxiety and stuff, I tend to avoid it. So most of it's decaf, and if I have it on hand, I usually have almond milk and honey with it. If I don't have almond milk, I usually just use regular milk then.
Mm.
But that's usually how I take it. And then I love tea too.
Yeah.
And
What teas do
I
you like?
I love mainly green and white teas. I will drink
Mhm.
black tea on occasion, but I just like the subtleness of green teas. So I like different flavor ones like that. And I usually put honey. Sometimes I'll put a little bit of milk with it, depending on the tea. If it's a black tea, I tend to put a little bit of milk with it. But I feel like I get more varieties with tea than I do with decaf coffee. Because usually, with regular coffee, they offer so many fantastic flavors and they're delicious. And
There's
decaf, normally it's like, here's the house blend. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's
yeah.
fine.
I love tea as well. I feel like I equally love tea and coffee. And we have a local tea house that sells like loose leaf tea, and they have a
Mhm.
Rubio's chai that's amazing.
Oh, that sounds good.
And it's decaf, and Rubio's is one of those teas. You can let it steep in the water forever. It never gets too strong or too bitter. Um,
Hmm.
because I love a matcha green tea, but I sometimes
Oh, I love matcha. I just bought some matcha the other day, actually.
yeah, it's
Uh,
better. It's better.
yeah, I make it with almond milk normally, and I'll make like a honey syrup that adds to it.
Very fun.
The local coffee shop here, they make a mean green tea matcha, and I always usually get with honey and peppermint. Oh my gosh, it's so good, so good.
That sounds amazing. Honey and
Oh, it's so
peppermint.
good.
Yes.
Yeah.
One of my favorite there's a tea latte at my local coffee shop where they like know my name and I probably pay their mortgage. They call it, I've heard it called the London Fog, and I've also heard it called Panda Nap. I don't know why they have such different names, but it's Earl Grey with frothed milk, which can be almond milk. I usually use almond, and then
Uh-huh.
some honey. It's like a tea latte. It's so
That
good.
sounds good.
Yeah.
I um I have a friend. He actually is probably like a better friend of my husband, but I consider him a friend. He has his own loose tea business. He's actually, I think he's on Instagram. I think his handle's like at Tea Dude. He's called the Tea Dude.
I'll look
He is really, yeah, this loose tea is amazing. He has this coconut oolong one.
Oh, coconut.
It,
Ooh,
yeah, it's
what?
so good. And he actually came out, I haven't tried it yet, but I ordered some of it. It was like a book theme
Hmm.
coffee or tea. I haven't tried it yet, but I'm trying to remember. I think it had cinnamon. Oh, I know cinnamon was one of the flavors in it.
Hmm.
I'm blanking on the rest. It's been a little bit since I've looked at it because always buy a huge coconut oolong one, and I'm just like, I'm just gonna sip on this for days.
Yes, yes. Authors and their hot drinks don't get between them. The Guardian's Daughter coming out September 21st, available for pre-order right now wherever books are sold online. Author Mugshot Challenge, the end of this week. If you're a fabulous superhero, indie author mom, anything else
Oh,
you need to add?
I was gonna say, I mean, you clearly love cute, superheroes. Who's your favorite hero?
Ooh. Um,
It's a hard one, isn't it? People
we
ask me that. I'm like,
had
oh God.
30 more minutes to this Authors After Dark episode officially now, because we're going to talk about superheroes. We're getting close,
I
but
mean, I'm all about talking about super. I mean, I will admit, I haven't read many comics my days, but I've been huge into some of the TV shows and the movies and stuff like that, and I feel like I can go on for days talking about that kind of stuff. So,
Did you catch the new Black Widow? Have you seen
not
it?
no, because I think it's just on. I know it's on Disney Plus, but I think it's on just the Premiere Access, isn't
It's
it?
premiere access and it's in
Yeah.
theaters.
Oh,
I,
it isn't. I keep forgetting theaters is a thing again. It's so
I know.
horrible. I'm like, all the theaters are open back up.
Only Marvel movie that it will be on premiere access. The rest of them will only be in theaters. We're about to have 4 Marvel movies for the rest of the year, I think, like one every other month. In addition to what if, hey up everyone, just so you know, we've diverted into just superhero talk. We're not even talking about Ryan. We're just talking about superhero. DM, we do love DC, but
Yeah,
unfortunately, the
I love
MCU.
DC though. I have to admit,
Yes,
Superman was my first love because of Smallville. Like,
I watch Smallville so much too. Oh my
oh
goodness.
yeah, like this is like one of my holy grails. Oop, I just dropped something now. It's a Smallville
Oh my good. Someone's
cartoon, and
fine.
it's Tom Welling's signature on it.
What?
Yes, and I also have one from Michael Rosenbaum because he's the best Lex Luthor ever.
He is. Oh my gosh. Can we just talk about how he is? And the guy that they
Oh,
put in the reboot, with I don't even know the actor's name. It was in all of the latest ones with Zack
I
Snyder.
know who you're talking about, but I don't know his name either.
I just felt like he was such a miscast for Lex Luthor.
I know I don't think they'll ever do it unless they happen to do some kind of Smallville reunion show, which I don't know if they would do
They
because
can't do it with that one girl because she's in jail.
yeah, and then well, they did the crossover episodes. I didn't watch all of them, but I made sure to watch the one that had a special scene in it. Did you happen to watch any of that? They had
Mm-mm.
like because pretty much there was all these crossover episodes, and it was like they were traveling through all these different universes.
I watched a lot of those episodes specifically. I think the most I've watched of those CW shows is the Arrow, and then towards
Hmm.
the end, basically when he and the girl that became Night Watch or Overwatch, and she was like, I don't know if I'm spoiling this, but it's been out for a long time. She was like in a wheelchair for one season, and they broke up, and they're supposed to get married, and I was like, I'm out.
You're like, I'm done.
He was supposed to be with her. I know that's your end game for 3 seasons from now. I'm out. She was like the brainy chick with the glasses, and she didn't have any physical superpowers except being smart. And I love that
I
about her.
I watched in the beginning. I think I watched the first couple episodes of Arrow, but I kind of sometimes I'll get burnt out really
Yeah,
quickly depending on the show sometimes,
yeah.
and
Those are very
like it's
formulaic on CW.
yeah, like I watched Smallville religiously when it came out multiple times. So I think I automatically thought like, oh, I would get into all these other ones really quickly. But then sometimes I'm not gonna lie, there's just so much content out
So
there.
much content.
I'm like, I can't sit here on the couch 24/7 trying to catch up on all these universes and
Oh my
characters.
God. Talk
I
about sitting on
can't.
the couch. Zack Snyder's cut. 4 hours. Good night.
I know my husband and I still haven't been able to watch it yet because it's so, we have a 4-year-old, so I'm like,
You just
where
schedule like multiple date nights to watch that.
One woman, there was one night when after we have a horrible habit of when they release the Marvel shows on Disney Plus,
Mm-hmm.
we'll wait till all of them are out and we'll binge them. And we'll
Mm-hmm.
stay up till 2, 3 o'clock in the morning and do that. But I'm like, but we can't do that to the Zack Snyder cut for some reason. But like we've totally binged when they came out with WandaVision.
Oh, I think it
It's
was
like,
probably better binged, honestly.
well, that's what someone else said to me too. Because when I watched them all together, because I had a couple people complain to me about the first couple episodes, and they
My
were
who loved Marvel didn't like the first few.
yeah, because they were telling me, well, you need to get through the first couple. But honestly, like, I enjoyed the first couple, but then, like, well, it might have been because I had that content back to back. But at the same time, I knew there was going to be more to it. I
You
thought it
know,
was kind of fun, sitcom-y. Like, I liked the vibe it was giving off. So I'm like, I enjoyed them.
I think in retrospect, they should have released the first 3 so that you
Hmm.
had the first 2 that were really just, we're in a TV show, and then
Yeah.
the see behind the curtain. Because when you just left it with just 2 episodes of they're in a TV show, it was just really abstract, which I loved. I love weird stuff like that. I was like, I love how weird this is. I love that we don't know what's going on. Like as an
Yeah.
author too, you're like, it's chapter 2. We still don't know what's going on, but I am here for it. I'm
You're like,
here
they're
for
building
it.
it up.
You
And then,
know?
there's a couple small little hints where they dropped, like the slight color was off and stuff like that. I'm like, they dropped a couple of hints to let you know, like, there was, of course, something bigger going on, and we all know there's something bigger going on. I'm like, it's
Hello,
okay.
Scarlet
Well,
Witch's vision. Bigger things are going on.
that's like things are gonna happen. It's okay if there's like a couple little chiller kind of episodes. But I think that's one time sometimes like where the problem is with superheroes, like especially one reason I get slightly concerned with labeling like my superhero, but there's the constant theme of superheroes is they want the constant action like back to back to back to back to back almost.
And
And don't
there's
get me wrong, I love action. I mean, there is action in my book, but it's not in every chapter that there's constant, fight scenes or anything
mhm,
like that. And sometimes
right.
I don't know how many times though I've told people, they ask me like, oh, what kind of book you wrote? I'm like, oh, there's like superheroes, and they're like, oh, I don't read about superheroes, and I'm like,
Yes, I've heard
well,
people
it's
say that.
fantasy, and they're like, oh, it's fantasy, and I'm like, yeah,
These are fantasy. It's a genre of fantasy. Like
yeah. Then they'll be interested after I just say fantasy. So I'm just like, why is this so hard?
I was literally thinking about the Vision, and when you were talking about genres with superhero romance versus fantasy romance, and I was thinking about the character the Vision. Speaking of Vision and Scarlet Witch, from Marvel, and how he is a completely fantastical character. Like,
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, he's a superhero because he's part of the Avengers, but
yes,
at his core, he's part android, part mystical gem from the universe, part
yeah.
overlay of other people's brains. Like, he's a completely sci-fi fantasy character. So
Hmm.
I think superhero just comes with its own baggage as a word, especially because they're so big right now. But I think
Yeah,
that would be a sell, honestly. Like
yeah.
that and
It's to
immediately,
say
honestly,
something.
intrigued me about your book. I was like, superhero romance? Tell me more.
Oh, it's a
So
single word.
I think too, choosing a genre like E.S. Barrison, who was on Authors After Dark a few episodes ago, does Gaslamp Fantasy. I was like, I don't know what that is. Tell me more. I'm very intrigued.
Yeah,
It's
actually, I
very,
don't know what that is
it's
either.
like steampunk fiction, historical steampunk
Oh,
Gaslamp
okay. I
Fantasy.
love steampunk, so that has me interested right
There
there,
you go. Exactly. And I'm like, I had no idea that was a
Yeah,
genre,
I
but
didn't
now
know
I want
that.
to know more.
Yeah.
And I think we're seeing too with indies the power of going after those really small niches, like um, speaking to romance too, like the reverse harem situation, like that used to be a very hard book to find.
Hmm.
Big Six wouldn't publish that kind of stuff because it's erotica. But
Hmm.
now that's like what is the hot thing is this reverse harem thing.
Hmm.
That's what I'm hearing through the author grapevine. And so it's interesting to see how niches and trends can kind of change. And so I think go full steam ahead with superhero romance. That drew me in,
Well,
because I hear about fantasy romances all day, and I
yeah,
know that superheroes are fantasy, you
yeah,
know.
because I mean, they're fancy. It has blown my mind just a couple times. I've said something to people about superheroes, and as soon as I say flip flop into fantasy, they're like, "Oh, it's fantasy." I'm like, "What do you think superheroes
They're the same. They're
like?" It's fine. It's fine. It's
Yeah,
totally
it's a
fine.
genre of fantasy, superhero romance. There you go. We
You know,
invented it here.
one thing the beauty, like you said too, with indie authors and writing is, we can do those genre mashups that you won't necessarily, if to be honest, you can take five different genres and mash them together in some way. Where sometimes that could scare off, a traditional
Totally.
publisher because they want to have an easier book to market to the
Yeah.
masses.
It's just the
You know,
tricky part is like you as an indie author trying to market it. As long as you
yeah,
can put as many genres as you want, as long as you can market it.
yeah, like you said, that's the thing is, and finding where your readers are. Sometimes,
Yeah.
you gotta make sure you're. So that's one thing I'm trying to make sure I'm doing now with my marketing stuff with pre-orders and stuff. Is like, okay, how can I actually target my audience base to get it out there? And
Mhm.
so that's been one thing I'm trying to figure out. I'm a marketing director by day, so it's funny. It's like I should be able to do this pretty easily, but
I should get this.
I'm like sometimes in my book I'm just like I just don't know, But
You're not
it's a
alone.
learning process, and
It is.
yeah.
Every author I talk to, it's a learning process. You're constantly learning. Even when I listen to webinars from authors who have published multiple books in multiple genres, you're constantly learning how to refine your craft, how to be a better entrepreneur. Um, because even now, just the way that the market has changed, even traditional authors, I don't know why I put in quotes, traditional authors, um,
Those
even
traditional ones.
those traditional ones, they still have to promote themselves and have an online presence and do a
Yeah.
little bit of marketing. It's not like it was back when Stephen King was trying to become an author.
Yeah.
Whole publishing landscape has changed. And in addition to that, there's a lot of smaller indie presses that can do a kind of hybrid experience where you get to maintain that indie control. Um,
Hmm.
but
I
you have,
have seen those.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm calling me curious about those is where I'm at right now. Um, but I'm just
Yeah, I'm
one of
not gonna lie, like I had looked into a couple of those hybrid ones you're talking about,
yeah.
but then I think what turned me off sometimes was just there was still gonna be like a little bit of a cost to it and
Oh,
and all that
yeah.
jazz and I was kind of
They're
like
asking for money. Mm-mm.
and that's one thing, it's like you make a little bit more when you do it yourself with publishing it, but then at the same time it's like, okay, but if I can get it though they can help me get it in front of more people though, in long term I probably would make more money. So
Mhm.
it's like half a dozen eggs in one basket and the other half in another. And
Yep.
completely right about the traditional thing. I did query The Guardian's Daughter, but back in the day the title was actually Wildfire.
Mhm.
Don't ask me to explain that one. But
Okay.
it's a completely different title and everything.
I had a different
And
time too.
well, my gosh, let me tell you, Tina. I I was using a comp. Oh, I was trying to take an easy way out, and I was doing quick searches about for books that I felt like I could use for comps that were kind of popular that I could possibly appeal to the traditional
Mhm.
publishers with. Even though I had always said like, oh, this is like I've always told my friends like, oh, it's kind of like based off of My Hero Academia sense. So I already kind of had my comps, but I for some
Yep.
reason wasn't thinking about it when I was saying it.
Mhm.
So I found this one book. It was called Evermore, and I just read the quick description of it, and
Mhm.
whatever description, I thought it was one thing, and I was like, oh, this sounds like it could be kind of like my book, so I'll use this as a comp. And so I was using it as a comp. And then later on, I actually finally took time to read the book, and it was pretty much like vampires. And like, I think a lot of people liked the book, but it just wasn't for me. And after I got done reading, I was like, holy cow, I've been using this thing as a comp. Like,
Oh,
oh my God. So, I mean, I learned a hard lesson
yeah.
with that, but I was just like, never again.
Yeah.
Well, I just based it off the back cover of a book. So that was my bad. Don't learn from me. Never do that. Anybody who's watching, just never do that. I shouldn't have done that. But I was looking for the same time, and but I got burnt out on querying really fast with it. But anyways, that was one of the constant questions. I was getting some people, they want to know if you had like a social media following, and if you did, to tell them how much. And
Yeah.
like you were saying, that's the thing. If you're traditionally published, most of the time those publishers are still expecting you to do a certain level of marketing and having a following. And
Mhm.
if you have a following, that might make you more appealing to them to want to publish you versus someone who doesn't have a
Yeah.
following.
I
And
follow, yeah, I follow several sci-fi authors that are published by Tor, which is like would be a dream publisher. If I ever took the time to pursue it, I'm kind of like, but I have my things. I'll just do it over here. But I follow some authors just to see what's the haps. And there's one J.S. Dews. I don't know if her book's for me, but I do appreciate her as an author, and she's doing a lot of the same stuff that I'm doing. She's making reels of comp titles for her book and to
it,
advertise other people that are published by Tor. So I think we're all in this together, and that we're not really in competition. We all need to just promote each other's work, but
yeah,
I think
100%.
the veil of, oh, well, if I'm traditional, then I have to do less self promotion. That's not true anymore. I think
Yeah.
everyone needs to be online, and the internet has made it so like you should be able to interact with your author. And you know,
Hmm.
I would have been tickled pink if Judy Blume would write me back or something like that when I was a kid. So I
Yeah.
understand the like, you know, that connection endears them even more to your work. Honestly.
Yeah.
So.
No, I agree with that a lot. And there's other different people I follow, kind of like artist based, and I I support some of them on Patreon and stuff like that, and just having that, sometimes that interaction with them on there. Or there's been a couple times, I don't know if you know who like Christine McConnell is, but she's
Mm-mm.
commented like once or twice on a couple of my posts that I've done through her Patreon stuff. And anytime she's done that, I was just like, oh my God.
Yeah.
But, you're right, though, 20 years ago, even, like, that wasn't a thing. Yeah, and like you said, you would, write them a letter and hope it didn't get lost and they got it, and one day would maybe write back to you or something like that. So, you're completely right.
And the funny thing is, too, and the roles are now reversed for us. If someone reads our work and reaches out to us and says, I really enjoyed that. That meant so much to me. That got me through this time. That did all this kind of stuff. It can get you through on those dark days, on those days where you're like, no one reads anything. This means nothing. I should just throw this in the trash. Like that takes you back to reviews, reaching out to an author, telling them like, hey, you're great. Your work means something to me. It's basic kindness, but also we're able to interact with each other in a way that's never been possible before, and it's pretty magical, I think.
No, it definitely is.
We would never have ever even met each other without the magic of technology. So
I know, it's just like S.J. Pratt. Like, there's no way I ever would have met someone in New Zealand just in my everyday life, Like, it's
travels and has a self-warming coffee mug. We've never get to meet 5 people like that.
If you can tell us what happens from the future, like, what? I never had.
I really just want to ask her, so how's the next day going?
I know, I'm sure she gets that a lot.
I'm sure she. Well, from those of us not in New Zealand.
Those of us who are here in the U.S., like, so how's the future going today, huh?
Yeah.
What do I need to worry about?
Yeah, exactly. And it has been so wonderful to talk to you, and I wish you all the best with your upcoming release of The Guardian's Daughter. I will be cheering for you virtually. Yeah, I guess I'll see you on the internet. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we wrap up this episode of Authors After Dark?
I just want to thank you again for asking me to be on and having this time with me, and good luck too with your book coming out soon. And yes,
thank you. I think it's all about community, and I enjoy these interviews so much because I feel like I learn and realize that we're all going through pretty much the same thing.
Yes, 100%.
Just going to keep at it and keep supporting each other. So thanks so much for your time.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Bye, y'all.